Whether I'm being disintegrated by holy fire, courtesy of a space amoeba, or pecked to death by a giant anorexic bird, I enjoy being smashed. Hello everyone, I'm Lost, and today I will go through every boss in the Elden Ring DLC and rank them according to how much fun they were to fight. With the exceptions of those we have already seen in the base game, because they are not deserving of any love and attention. But what makes a boss fight fun? Well, opinions on that will vary, but luckily, as a human being, my brain has a built-in enjoyment meter, which I will use to rank the 32 bosses on this list. Starting with a dishonorable mention: the Giant Fire. I understand that this technically isn't a boss fight, but it does scream boss fight to me, so I'm including it on my list. You fight these oversized corpse ovens by wailing away at their feet until their structural integrity is so weakened that they fall over and you can crit them in their dumb faces. The reason why I dislike them so much is because it takes forever. The stomp attack isn't too bad, unless you get hit of course, but the giant leap left me barely any time to get away. This thing had my number and is probably the only fight in the game that I actively disliked. Number 32. Curseblade Labyrith. To be fair to this horn-scent equivalent of a Beyblade, I fought him after I had acquired a solid amount of Erdtree fragments. Yes, that's how you should pronounce that. Which made him super easy. He tries his best to channel his inner tornado, attacking us with the classic spin-to-win moves. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Number 31. The Lamenter. He may look like a hobo behind your local Burger King, but unfortunately, he is not as tough. The Lamenter has several attacks, but his whole gimmick revolves around him conjuring up these shadow clones that vomit balls of darkness. You can easily avoid these oral assaults, but even if you were to get hit, these things hurt less than biting down on a stale bagel. Simply walk around and punch the fakes until you find a real one, before brutally rearranging the face of this Shadow Realm mental patient. And once you defeated him, you can wear his skin. Why? Number 30. Chief Blood Fiend. This is just an ordinary enemy who was granted a fancy health bar. I was honestly expecting a more difficult boss fight considering we just slaughtered his entire tribe 2 seconds before entering the boss room. But this blood-crazed mole man was a breeze. I suppose this might be a me thing, considering I have been traumatized by Michael Saki's insistence on every enemy having some sort of roll catch attack. Oh well, I suppose it's nice to be the bully sometimes. Number 29. Red Bear. The first of quite a few NPC boss battles in this game. Even if they are not the most visually exciting fights, I enjoy these little duels. This furry cosplayer puts up an okay fight. If you are wielding any sort of weapon that has the ability to trade, you will be in good shape. I do question this NPC's judgment in worshipping a ginger bear, but there is no accounting for taste, I suppose. Number 28. Ancient Dragon Man. I don't understand why FromSoft feels the need to make every dragon form look like they have anorexia. His potential eating order aside though, this man hits like a truck. The placement of Dragon Man will really depend on how much you like dragons, and apparently, I like dragon cosplayers more than bear cosplayers. Number 27. The Dancer of Rana. I really enjoy the aesthetics of a dancer turned warrior. The Dancing Blades of Rana has this ash of war where they go into a prolonged slashing session that only ends once you run out of FP or you get smashed. And unfortunately for the dancer, her feminine moves have nothing on my masculine pokes. Just like the Red Bear, if you use a chunky weapon, the dancer can't really do much. She does have this neat little item called the Perfumed Oil of Rana that throws out an arc of fire, completely intending to melt your face off. However, it's easily jumped, and when you do it, you feel like a badass. Number 26. The Black Jail Knight. This guy ends up ahead of the 3 other NPCs by virtue of being more difficult. he's more likely than not going to end up as your first actual boss fight in the DLC, so beating him will feel very rewarding. Because the knight is using a greatsword, trading with him is also way more riskier. And he has a machine gun! Those are cool. Number 25. Dry Leaf Dane. Considering that you are facing off with a martial arts master, this fight automatically gets brownie points. He's not too hard to deal with, but you do need to watch out for that palm strike, as it has hyper armor that lasts longer than the first time I bedded a woman. Number 24. Rakshasa. Treat this guy like a puzzle and you'll have a great time. He will keep slashing at you as if he's trying to surgically remove his childhood trauma, and you'll have to find a way around that. Jump attacks, parries, Ashes of War with superior hyper armor and or spacing, take your pick. Rakshasa is not an obstacle that you beat, it's an obstacle that you break. Number 23. The Golden Hippo. It's a well-established fact that the hippo is the deadliest large land mammal, and it shows. You will not avoid this attack your first time tussling with this oversized menace. Just accept that you will get crushed between its jaws, while your nasal cavity is filled with whatever decaying piece of meat the hippo had for lunch. The boss fight is chaotic, but it is a proper boss fight, which is why I'm placing it ahead of most of the NPC fights. When his health hits the halfway mark, it is revealed that the hippo also got a fair bit of porcupine DNA inside of it, as it suddenly starts sprouting golden quills from its back. Look, I don't want to come across as insulting, but let's just say, if I was the hippo's father, I would have some questions for my wife. Number 22. The Ghost Flame Dragon. The dragons are back, and this time, they're dead. These flying undead lizards make it on this list because of a few new moves and a badass new skin. Or lack thereof, you could say. There are 3 of these guys meandering around in the realm of shadow, and I enjoy fighting the basic one quite a bit. But the other 2, I don't know. There is one Ghost Flame Dragon fighting a contingent of Mesmer soldiers close to the Fort of Reprimand. Dealing with both the soldiers and the dragon at the same time is really annoying, as you could be having a great fight, but then out of nowhere comes a black knight that bonks you on the head, caving your skull in, and while you're laying there in the dirt, your brain seeping out of your ears, you will be fried by the dragon's Ghost Flame breath attack. You can't even wait for the 2 sides to finish, since they do a minuscule amount of damage to each other. I like the concept of this, but I'm pretty let down by the 2 sides basically just tickling each other. The one you find in the Cerulean Coast is fine, I guess. It summons undead to help it, but only does so halfway into the fight, so it's not too bad. The location is also gorgeous. If you are fighting these things, do yourself a favor and grab a couple of golden epitaphs, as these things do major damage against the undead. These weapons destroy zombie health bars quicker than Taco Bell's destroys my ass. Number 21. Jory, the Elder Inquisitor. Like every other summoner boss, Jory the Elder can be annoying when you first die to him, but it's not as bad as it seems. A lot of Jory's attacks root him to the ground, allowing you to quickly circle around and non-consensually grab some of that Inquisitor booty. In addition, whenever Jory teleports, he will need to resummon his minions. The only dangerous one of those guys is the Boogie 2988 Spirit Summon that will try to crush you with all of its chunk.
One for me and one for the hooker.
Just be aggressive.
Take it, bitch.
If you are a heavy weapon enjoyer, you will find that Jory isn't all that hard to stance break. For example, after a backstab, Jory's face is prime real estate for a charged heavy or a lion's claw. Because of all of this, I think that Jory is a fight that you will find much more fun on your second playthrough. Number 20. Jagged Peak Drake. What would you value so highly that you are willing to die for it? Women? Territory? Or a freshly made batch of donuts from the shop around the corner? I guess we will never know why these 2 lizard boys are at each other's throats, but look. After being thoroughly stomped by the game. Watching these two guys rip each other apart is cathartic to me. It's nice to know that the game even bullies itself sometimes. Number 19. Count Ymir, Mother of Fingers. Seeing Ymir grow a fingergina and casually give birth to some of the most horrendous creatures that has ever graced a video game is low-key traumatizing. But we are Souls players and we thrive off having our mental health decimated. Count Ymir is not a particularly difficult fight. In fact, he can be very easy given everything you had to do to get to this part. But the entire storyline leading up to him becoming the human equivalent of an eldritch seahorse is fantastic. Number 18. Riva and Rugula, the Great Red Bears. Sharing a spot, we have the two ginger bears. This is the real deal, and not the pretender from earlier who wears their skin in a desperate attempt at fitting in. They are basically rune bears, but with a little extra spice thrown in. They are good, solid, enjoyable fights. Number 17. Black Knight Erdtree. FromSoft has always been really good when it comes down to their basic knight enemy. This one has solid fundamentals and quite the awesome opening attack. Nothing more needs to be mentioned. Number 16. Black Knight Garrow. While I don't think anybody would disagree that Erdtree has more pizzazz, Black Knight Garrow just feels slightly better to me. His attacks hit harder, sure, but it also opens him up more to being counterattacked. He ends up ahead of Erdtree, if only slightly. Also, that tongue. Oof. Number 15. Demi-Human Swordmaster Onsi. Fighting Onsi is like fighting a brain-damaged Yoda, and I don't even know if that makes him less or more scary. He jumps around like a kangaroo on meth and even deflects your attack like some sort of miniature Sekiro with a skin condition. I absolutely love him. He is somewhat difficult to wrap your head around though, and when I finally put him down, I didn't really feel like I had earned my victory. These guys are the reason why Elden Ring would benefit so much from a boss rush mode. Number 14. The Tree Sentinels. Both of them. Yes, I know. These guys are basically copy-pasted from the base game. However, they have been made a fair bit smaller. And that one tiny change really made me enjoy these fights a whole lot more. What a difference a tiny adjustment can make. Number 13. The Divine Dancing Lion. I don't think it's surprising that we had to go so far into the list before we got to our first Remembrance boss. The Divine Dancing Lion fight is spectacular. You fight two dudes in a costume who are more in sync than my thumb and index finger. The reason why this fight is the lowest of the heavy hitter bosses is because it suffers from the golden hippo syndrome. Unless you are an artist at controlling the camera, the fight can get very chaotic very quickly. If you find yourself in a bad position, you will get killed by a minty fresh breath attack because the lion decided to imitate a tornado. Just like all the bosses though, once you know what to do, his attacks are pretty manageable. But I can see dying to this boss being frustrating in the beginning. Number 12. Commander Gaius. I have heard a surprising amount of people calling Commander Gaius their favorite boss in the DLC. And I can see it. His attacks leave you a fair amount of opening for counterattacks and heals, rendering him a fairly enjoyable fight. Nothing fancy is required here, you just gotta learn which direction to roll. And while it's not super relevant to the fight, according to Gaius' armor, Gaius was the most senior disciple of the same Alabaster Lord who taught Redon and Gaia gravitational technique. So in my headcanon, Gaia is Gaius' boar, which means a pig was taught gravitational magic from a space elf. Number 11. Death Knight Halberd and Death Knight Axes. These are two separate bosses, but I'm gonna combine them into one, since the fights are fairly similar. It's a bit of a cliche, but my god, Death Knights in fantasy are so cool. I also think these fights are helped immensely by where I found them in my playthrough. After being constantly stomped, I finally got a piece of that one thing that has eluded me for most of my life. Confidence. And so, the unfortunate Death Knights had to deal with what I can only describe as an Omega level lost. The fight itself is pretty straightforward. A duel in front of the undead fish face of Godwyn. You can jump a lot of their attacks, which always makes me feel like a badass. But they are badasses too. Like this one attack has them lifting you into the air while choking you, and no matter how much you call them daddy, they only let go once they have stolen an unhealthy chunk of your life force. Also, bonus points for giving each knight a different weapon instead of simply copy-pasta the fight. Number 10. Metyr, Mother of Fingers. I imagine this abomination is what you get when an outer space god decides to try their metaphorical hand at creating life. Metyr looks like the living embodiment of the phrase, "Please kill me!" And so I did. Very easily. Too easily, actually. I killed Metyr on my second try, and if I'm being honest, I only died earlier because I was too busy marveling at how fucked up this thing is. Metyr is weak to both bleed and to being stance broken, so my Starfist build basically ended this boss fight faster than a miner could end Dr. Disrespect's career. Her attacks are mostly well telegraphed and allow for an array of different approaches depending on your build, which goes a long way to increase the fun factor. Number 9. The Putrescent Knight. This is a multi-layered skeleton infused by magic corpse sludge who rides a half-melted horse. It's gross, but in the best way imaginable. The Sludge Knight requires a balanced diet of jumping and dodging, alongside careful positioning in order to put it down. He's quite the speedy little spookster, and he will attack you with spine-twisting swings of his axe that sometimes identify as a boomerang. He can be hard to hit, but at the same time, I think this boss fight is a perfect blend of cinematic and grounded. Just look at what I did when getting footage for this video. That's cool. Number 8. Ramina, Saint of the Bud. No Souls franchise is complete without a bug waifu, and while she doesn't quite reach the confusing erotic exhilaration as Quelaag or Scorpioness Narshka, I still appreciate her. This fight is just beautiful, and that's in no small part thanks to the camera that really does a great job keeping Ramina and her incoming attacks in view. Whether that is her bug mouth trying to decrease your body mass by approximately 50%, or the pink semi-nuclear butterflies that explode in your face, it's all good. I also want to praise the color palette of this fight, as you don't really get a lot of hot pink colored bosses in the Souls games. Number 7. The Erdtree Avatar. It's a giant sunflower. If that doesn't tickle your pickle, then you are dead inside. He may look intimidating, but despite his oversized nature, or maybe even because of it, his attacks are well telegraphed and gives you plenty of openings. The Sunflower has several attacks where he smashes his head into the ground, like he's speedrunning a concussion. That's your window to hit him with a charge attack. Combine that with a few jumping heavies, and the Shadow Anus, that's a plant joke for the 4 people who get that, is toast. Number 6. Promised consort Redon. Look, I, like a lot of others, didn't want Redon to be the final fight. I know some people wanted Godwyn to be our preeminent obstacle, but if it was up to me, we would be fighting Mikla in a patchwork skin suit made from the corpse of Moog. Still, it's unfair to judge something on what I want it to be instead of what it is. As a boss fight, I really like this, especially the difficulty level, although I could have done with a little less blinding beams of light. When I first fought Redon, I was balls deep into an 18-hour long stream and I still made it work. Since then, I have fought him quite a few times with different weapons and equipment and have found multiple ways of dealing with him. The first half of the fight is fine. The second half, when Redon equips the Miquella backpack and every attack is infused with seizure-giving strobe lights, that's when people get a little peeved. But even so, I really did like this fight. It was the proper difficulty to end Elden Ring. Number 5. Mesmer the Impaler. While it may not appear as such when you first get impaled by the serpent-infused twink, Mesmer is actually fairly generous with his openings. The lingering embers from his attacks might look a bit scary, but there is ample time to get in a charge attack here or there. Combine that with a few jump attacks, and you will stance break him quicker than I could say, please subscribe to the channel. His second phase is such a spectacle, but once you figure out which snake attacks are punishable, you will be eating Mesmer out in no time. Eating him up, beat. Number 4. Midra, Lord of the Frenzied Flame. I wish more fights started with me assaulting a senile old man. Midra, more than any other boss in Elden Ring, allowed me to be aggressive. There are no unending attack chains here, and the counterattack windows are so wide they could fit Elon Musk's ego. You can straight up annihilate this so-called Lord of Frenzy with the right technique. In fact, while gathering the footage that you see in the background, I accidentally no-hit him. Probably the most satisfying kill in the game. Number 3. Bale. There is no lack of epic dragon fights in the From Software portfolio, but Bale might just be the best. There is a new alpha dragon in the hierarchy of boss fights, and it's a cripple nonetheless. Honestly, that's very inspirational. If it were up to me, I would replace the "hang in there kitten" posters with Bale's grim face just staring at you. The reason Bale is such a fun fight, outside of the cinematic as fuck attacks, is the same reason Ramina is such a fun fight. The camera does an excellent job following the action while you try smacking him in the face. It even subtly pushes you in the right direction when you need to dodge an attack. And let's not put aside that we get to summon one of the best NPCs in the game for this fight. I generally stay away from summons, due to the fights being more satisfying when it's just you against the boss. But you will be doing yourself a significant disservice if you don't at least once summon Aigon and have him scream, "Curse you, Bale!" Number 2. Needle Knight Leader and her contingent. I seriously considered putting this as the number 1 spot, even though we are basically just fighting NPCs. But no other fight in the game could elicit such emotions from me. I went through the DLC as thoroughly as I could, doing every side quest that I could find, and I found the majority of them. Because of that, I really grew to know and appreciate the people around me, so when it came to blows, I was really invested in who I had to fight and who came to my aid. Having Tholier show up and apologize for being such a bitch was a standout moment for me.
I am deeply sorry for doubting you. I am here only to grant Sentinel's singular wish. I will stop Miquella the Kind. He will never become a god.
And number 1. Reana, the Twin Moon Knight. This fight embodies everything that I love about these games. It's hard, yes, but without giving me crippling depression. It also allows for a wide array of different approaches. For example, she only needs to be parried twice for you to get a riposte. Her combos are certainly vicious, but the ends are well telegraphed, which allows you that stance-breaking, heavy charge attack. She's weak to Frostbite, Pierce, and because the fight takes place in a shallow puddle of water, any sort of lightning damage will be amplified. If you learn which attacks are jumpable, then your openings will increase by 1/3. You can also adjust the difficulty of this fight by exploring the world and grabbing the Erdtree fragments if you so choose, because the fight isn't even mandatory. Visually, it might not be a powerhouse compared to Bale or Redon, but there are a few visual flourishes here, like the Twin Moon power dunks, or Reana going full on anime. In essence, this fight is a duel between two veteran warriors. It's simple, straightforward, and the best. Please subscribe, because I want to be famous and rich.